Hi, everyone. It's Mairead here from Wonderoom. Thank you so much for joining. We will be getting started in the next minute or two as we allow everyone to join. Excellent. Thank you. Millie, if you'd like to take us onto the main screen. Hi, everyone. Brilliant to have you here today. Welcome to episode 5, our final episode in the Business and Nature series, which we launched in partnership with Salesforce to cover the biggest topics for business on nature. We have a brilliant episode ahead of us today on the really important question of how business can constructively support and partner with local communities on nature. This is absolutely pivotal, as we know, and we are really delighted and honored to have such an incredible lineup of speakers and panelists joining us today from across a number of different countries and regions. And so each of them are going to introduce themselves shortly. However, just to give a quick context, we have Ruiz, Corzo, who's the founder and director at Grupo Ecológico Sierra Gorda in Mexico. We have Tino, Aucca, Chutas from Acción and Andina, who's joining us from Peru. We have Pato, Kelesitse from Sustain 247 joining us from Botswana. And we have Nitah, who is from Nature for Justice, dialing in from Canada. And obviously myself, Mairead from Wonderoom, who will be hosting the session. So just to provide a little quick context for the session before we pass over to each of the panelists to individually give a bit of an intro on themselves and where they're coming from. When we step back and look at this question, some of the main drivers and why we're so thrilled to have this be the closing episode for the series is that while we're seeing private sector engagement and investment really ramping up on nature and biodiversity, it's still actually relatively small to the overall need and financial gap that exists globally. And so also important to note that the motivations for different companies and businesses engaging, investing, partnering on nature and biodiversity and broadly more climate as well really do vary. We know that, of course, climate and net zero goals remain a major focus and can also shape a lot of the agenda around their investment in good and potentially in some cases less good ways. However, there also are other drivers such as improving and enhancing supply chain resilience, protecting and thinking to restore aspects of biodiversity that their business touches on, looking at, for example, how to support and engage on community livelihoods and goals. It's also fair to say that the extent to which that's been successful has been very mixed. There's obviously cases where the ways in which business have partnered have been very successful and positive for local communities and Indigenous peoples. There's been many cases where they have not been constructive and successful. And I think going into that conversation in an open and considered way is important. Obviously, when we look at this question, we have to say that there is no effective business engagement and strategy on nature and biodiversity that doesn't deeply consider and think about how business is working effectively with local communities and Indigenous peoples, because we know that they are the land stewards of a third of Earth's territories, hold 80% of our remaining biodiversity. And actually, a recent report showed that 91% of that land is actually in either good or fair ecological condition, which is a huge coup given the reflection of where we are more broadly. So clearly any strategy has to consider deeply how to effectively partner. That's kind of the opening context to the session. I would love to also say that we won't be able to cover everything today. This is a complex subject, also huge regional and local differences that we have to also consider. But we really hope today's session will give you some really practical insights to take away and consider when actually considering your partnerships and investments at the local level. With that, I'm going to hand over to each of the panelists to do their own introduction. And we are going to start with Patty. If Patty is there, and if we can, Millie, brilliant, thank you. Patty, over to you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Ruiz Corzo. I am the director of Grupo Ecológico Sierra Gorda, based in central Mexico, with 36 years working with the local communities. We work in a biosphere reserve, a high priority for Mexico. And we are an isolated green area in central Mexico, a big island. Since the year 97, we got the decree as a biosphere reserve in purpose, pushed by the social society that already had promoted this decree. And I became the sheriff for the region for 14 years. Oh, it was my pleasure to put things in order. And one day I had to quit, too many years in the same place, and I came back to the civil society, always thinking and with a deep commitment to the local landowners, my local partners. God, how to develop strategies that could bring capacities to develop new economy for them. Then we began, our biggest effort always has been environmental education. Yeah, working in the schools, with the parents, in the plaza, in everywhere, in every way possible, being in touch with the society. And we have done it with all our energy for 36 years, continuously. Singing a lot, yeah, and weaving love relation with the local communities. So nowadays, with that social weaving around Mother Earth of sanitation, recycling, reforestation, cleaning campaigns, parents committees, catching water, small recycling centers, network at every level. People is organized. And developing new capacities, new skills to offer like tourism, nature-based tourism. Then we have developed small micro enterprises among all over Sierra. Yeah, where to sleep, where to eat, where to enjoy nature, always with the support of a team that has been long processes, weaving every year a little, until you finish with one project and go to the next, and at the same time you have another 100. Bringing up those capacities, and that's a big joy. We have to teach investors the pleasure of give, and give. New values. When you get that your society is surrounding the territory, the landscape, with regeneration, with cleaning, with love, with thoughts, and with solutions, like community tourism, like all the handcrafts and natural shampoos and aromatic collectors are developing for them all the opportunities that are for them to give value to the landscape. And our big effort has been towards to push a public politic that nowadays, my friends, they are giving us through corporates a new, fresh financing for nature. Wow, finally it came. It was the biggest piece of financing to give it to that natural capital, an economic source for the local community. Because what it is left, our forests are the most sacred thing that we may keep as healthy, as love, as with care, stopping fires, stopping loggings. We have to regenerate those forests and paying well to the landowners to take the livestock out. We have natural regeneration. My friends, I have planted with all my Grupo Ecológico, 6 million trees. Oh, you cannot imagine the effort, but now we don't have even rainy season, okay? I'm not planting trees. We are just doing since decades natural regeneration. And Sierra Gorda is the main beneficiary of the public politic that we have pushed, within high relations among everyone. That's our big capacity as NGO, weaving at every level. And the stars came and gave us a card, and finally it came as a financing source. Yeah, public politics, no markets, carbon, very transparent carbon reduction footprint, but under a local protocol. And my state, Querétaro, is the only state in Mexico that is operating this mechanism through a carbon tax at subnational level that has put our Querétaro state as a global leader for climate action. And it is a model that has been designed out of market, out of business. Here the money we get is for the landowners. Yeah, we are not losing time in expenses and technical studies that have not any root, with commitments that are not fair for the local landowners. Wow, it took me like 30 years, but finally, my friends, we are there. We have a model that is operating, and we are open to replicate. Yeah. So I give thanks to life that has had the opportunity to be here with you. But climate action, since grassroots, growing with waves of love and work and the ways, and you concentrate and put all your effort in one point. I expect you will come with us to share a premiere of a video produced by GFE Film. Yeah. And to learn more about the Querétaro State local protocol, because it's a mechanism that may be replicated in many other places in the planet, in the South.
Thank you so much, Patty. Thank you so much. And I think that's a great point we're going to be also picking up on in some of the aspects of that model that you've created that can be used elsewhere as well. Thank you for the intro. And over now to Tino in Peru. Tino, take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm Tino Aucca from Cusco, Peru. Since 2000, I'm the current president of Asociación Ecosistemas Andinos, ECOAN, and since 2018, I'm the president of Acción Andina. Our formula of success, I normally repeat, is the respect. Respect to the local and native communities with whom we have an open dialogue and we listen them because they have many things to tell us. And the best thing is we learn from them. We are not a model that comes as a part of the books or just as a part of an article. No. We are reviving ancient practices from all these cultures to become as part of our program. Acción Andina managed a large scaling program of conservation and restoration of ecosystems. Those practices, like the Aini and Minka, helps to became the Incas empire on this magnificent that is the admiration of many people and still who visit all this part of the continent to admire all these resources. Ainiminga means communal work. Everybody working for a common good is the principle of our activities. We are not just only a native plants program. We also are securing water. We are providing capacitation. We also are providing jobs, leadership, monitoring, micro-business, and the best. We are trying to create a sustainability program because this program is not going to last only few years. We are thinking, we don't know. Our main target is to plant 100 million native trees. But we also have a complementary activities with those that we are developing, like fire control, fencing, leadership, monitoring, sustainability, all based on a program, on a large scaling program. But what the local and native communities loves is the efficient management of the funds. That is the other thing that we want to pass to everybody. We spend much larger percentage of our budget on the ground than on operation or management. Everybody's happy with that. In the last 5 years, we planted 10 million trees along all the Andes, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Chile, Argentina, and this year it's going to be Colombia. All, I think, for the good of all of us and the health of the Mother Earth. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tino. Lots to pick up in the discussion that I think we'll be keen to come on to. Pato, over to you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pato, like was mentioned, and I am from Botswana. I founded the Sustain 267, where one of our main projects is the podcast where we look at amplifying voices that you wouldn't usually hear, predominantly from Africa. So we talk to communities, talk to young people, we talk to different experts, researchers, and the like. And then also to still introduce myself. So like I said, I'm currently joining you from Gaborone in Botswana. I'm from a smallholder farming family, was just at the farm this weekend. So when we talk about nature, and we're talking with our small cattle post, we graze. So one of the things that one of the first things that came to mind for me is how culturally where we are, which I think extends to the rest of the continent, is that we live off the land, and the wellness of the land and the wellness of nature is our wellness and nature. So even profits, a line that we hear often is we can't drink oil, we can't eat money. But when you've got the land, when you've got nature, you've got safety, you've got security, you can only do so much with cash. So when we talk business and nature, sometimes they seem like two things that are, quite often, unfortunately, they do tend to clash. And I think in this conversation, definitely looking forward to how can business do better, contribute into the conversation of how can business do better, how can we bring those two together, because we are because of the land, and also if we protect the land, then we will continue to be. If not, we will get lots of profits, but will we be there to enjoy them? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pato, for that. Brilliant. We will move on to Stephen, and then we'll be into the discussion. Thank you.
Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. My name is Stephen Nitah. Stephen Nitah Sulia, Zonense, Helyaski. Kusget Dene, Sonstinet, Deneslere. I just mentioned my language, my Dene language, the Athabascan linguistic group, that I'm a First Nations person from a community called Tutsilge in the Northwest Territories of Canada. I work as the managing director for Nature for Justice, which is a social justice NGO with global aspirations. It's a new NGO focusing on supporting communities and people on the front line of climate change. And in Canada, as the managing director for Canada, I'm focusing our energies around supporting Indigenous-led conservation, centering Indigenous people's rights and responsibilities. I am doing that through supporting them using my experience. I was a chief of my nation. I was the chief negotiator that negotiated legal contractual agreements with Canada through its National Parks Agency and with the government of the Northwest Territories to create one of the largest Indigenous protected and conserved areas in North America. We're able to protect 26,380 square kilometers, where my people are equal partners with Canada and the government of Northwest Territories in the governance, management, and operations of Saidinanene, which is the name of the protected area. Saidinanene means land of our ancestors. And with great partners like Canada and with partnership with two public governments, managing Saidinanene is becoming a real challenge. Canada has signed on to and pretty much led the global community in reaching the framework agreement that was signed in Montreal last year, known as the Montreal Framework Agreement, to protect 30% of biodiversity on Earth. Canada is well on their way to getting there, using the example of Saidinanene and the relationship building process that we went through. Indigenous nations across Canada have declared over 100 Indigenous protected and conserved areas, covering roughly 500,000 square kilometers of land. For Canada to reach its international commitments of protecting 30% by 2030, they need to protect 16.2% more, and we're at 13.8. That 16.2% represents a quantum of land roughly the size of Manitoba, or 666,000 square kilometers. The challenge in Canada is we do have a huge landmass. We're the second largest country in the world, the largest coastline in the world. But we are a northern Arctic nation. It is extremely expensive to create infrastructure, maintain infrastructure, and deliver programs and services. We have a small population base of 40 million people, but 25 million are still tax base. To get to protect 30% and manage that 30% effectively against the impacts of climate change, we don't have the tax base to do that. But we do have a law-based society with a constitutional recognition of Indigenous peoples and their rights. So we have the capacity to generate leadership opportunities where we give nature a real shot of doing its 1/3 solutions to climate change. We have a huge landmass and oceans that sequester billions and billions of tons of carbon and has intact ecosystems that are threatened by climate change today. Last summer, for an example, forest fires rage across the country. Normally, in a normal fire season, about 2%, a little bit over 2% of Canada's landmass burns, which is what the ecosystem requires. But last year, over 18% of the country burned. In fact, in northern Canada, where I'm from, the fires are still burning even under the snow. They'll burn all winter and start up again. And as I said, my nation and the government of Northwest Territories and the government of Canada, who are in partner of managing this 26,000 square kilometers, we don't have the financial resources to manage Saidinanene against climate change. And the parties to that agreement, those governments, have a let it burn policy because there's no money to manage it. We're talking about Indigenous leadership and conservation, not only here in Canada, but globally. Indigenous people have proven to be the best at creating and maintaining a healthy relationship with nature. That nature has given humanity a chance today to address climate change. But that nature needs help now, and the indigenous peoples that manage these areas need help now. And to invest in what's proven to work is one of the free market principles. So invest in indigenous peoples to utilize their value systems, their knowledge systems, using their laws is the key to continuing giving that 80% remaining biodiversity in nature a hand that it needs to give us the time to bring technology into the equation. And, you know, that's the only proven technology to date at scale that can absorb the carbon that's in the air, that's changing the environment, the weather, and its devastating impacts on everybody. So how do we do that? That's the question that we're all facing. And I'm going to be talking about a program that I'm working on with a couple of partners, Nature Focused Developments and Ducks Unlimited Canada, of working with corporations and businesses to support them in getting to their net zero aspirations using nature-based solutions, including carbon offsets. I look forward to talking about that. And that program is called the First 30 by 30.
Thank you so much, Stephen, for that. And we'll be sure to come on to that program as well. We're now going to have everyone on screen together. So it's, I think we can add in Patty, and then if we can add in Pato. Millie?
I think Pato's just dropped off for a second, so I'll add her when she's back.
Okay, amazing. Yeah, I think there was some storms happening right now in Botswana, so the internet's a little in and out, but Pato will be back and able to join us when she can. In the meantime, I think we kick off the discussion. So the idea here is quick round question and answers. So we'll keep things relatively short in this round so that we can cover a fair few questions from everyone. And please, audience, please add your questions into the Q&A box as we go, and then we'll be picking those up in the Q&A section towards the end. So just any thoughts, any questions for our brilliant speakers, please add them into the Q&A box at the bottom. First question, I'd love to turn to you, Tino, if I may. Something you mentioned to me in our call the other week was you said species need habitats, not more reports, which I think was a nod to the fact that you feel there are a lot of reports happening, a lot of meetings happening, and a lot of big numbers being committed to. But your challenge, I think, with that was how much of that money is actually going to the local communities and going to the habitats and benefiting nature and people. So over to you, if you can, Tino, just to share a little bit more of your thoughts and your advice for business when it comes to thinking about how they're spending their money.
Thank you so much for that question. And it's time to talk about conservation at the moment. Many times, even everybody in this audience, since we were a child at the high school, at the university, every time when we saw a PowerPoint about the problems with the biodiversity, with the environment, what normally appears? The main threat is humans destroying the environment, humans doing everything bad. And if that is the thing that we learned years and years ago, why the people didn't answer me and said, if the humans are the problem, why don't we work with the humans? Why the people is desperate on trying to accumulate more reports, more analysis? For me, it's worrying to sit down with a specialist who has been 40 years studying the dry forest, and still he couldn't find an answer how to protect the dry forest. The dry forest around the world is the most threatened forest at the moment. Even with all these global meetings, after this 28th COP meeting, what we learned? Another time wasted more than $98 million in tourism, and in nice meetings, nice picture for the magazines or other things. Oh, sorry. If you talk with the local communities, if you talk with the native communities, what they are going to demand, said, we want to be part of the solution. If they want to be part of the solution, they want to be inside, not just part of the nice picture for the magazine of the companies or just being part of the names of the enterprise. No. Sorry. Native and local communities are demanding action. Conservation has more than 45 years at the moment. But how much money we wasted on the way with all these guys who is only increasing more the ego and the comfort, you know. Sorry, I'm the champion of the world from United Nations. And for me, it was so sad to see all these experts wasting a lot of money on trying to fight between themselves to discuss what? Who is going to pay the last trip to Dubai? Who is going to pay my seats on the audience? Who is going to guarantee my salary? Why that? That is not the environment. That is not the climate crisis. That is just ego and comfort. The planet Earth is not demanding for that. The planet Earth is demanding action. And the local and native communities are coming so open for that. For that reason, to all the companies, all these people, many times when I sit down with them, they come to the meeting and say, okay, you are coming for more money, eh? You are demanding for more, what I can say, more help. And never ever tell me that we are the only evil guys who is destroying the environment. Says, what? Sorry, this is not our position. We are coming to tell you how to use very well all the money that you already invested. That comes with this enterprise responsibility, social responsibility, environmental. There are a lot of money, but you are wasting your money because your CEOs are not spending very well that money. We don't want
Tino,
any. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can I ask you, because it's a really interesting point you're saying there. So can I ask you to build on that even more and say, because you've made this point about business wasting money, like the opportunity business has to be more effective and impactful and a positive contributor through the money it spends. Can you give 1 or 2 tips on what you would like business to do better in terms of how it's spending its money in ways that then benefit local community, benefit nature?
My main recommendation is to try to talk very well with the CEOs on the ground and try to see what is the results that they are looking for. Second, we don't want any colonialism form because that idea of giving gifts, sorry, that is going to create corruption. And that's not going to help to nobody. We need more investment with the concrete and real actions on the ground. That is that all the communities demand. And the other thing, never ever follow that idea that take this money and resolve the problem in 1 or 2 years. Sorry? You are trying to change the habit and resolve the problem of the earth. That means it's a minimum 5 years from the medium to a large scaling problem, because we come from from many different cultures, but we learned that the changes happen cyclically every 5 years in our life. And that is, sorry if I spend this word, but it's stupid to think that you can change with money everything in 2 years. Forget it. Sorry if I say that, but please remember, if we want to resolve the problem, we want to have an open mind, not with all this academia or laboratory ideas. We are not guinea pigs. Sorry, we are fighting to try to save the planet. We are not trying to accumulate more certificates on trying to put on a wall or wherever can be. Native and local communities, they are looking for action and being respected. Sorry for that.
Thank you so much, Tino. I think brilliant points there, which I invite also the other speakers to build on in their reflections as well. Pato, I'd love to turn to you. I know we were discussing a little bit the other day on some of almost like the design principles of how you would like to see business engage when thinking about partnerships. And also as part of that, love to hear also within that, the sort of ensuring business is bridging into also the youth perspective alongside when thinking about local communities.
Thanks. So I think with this one, when we look at just how business needs to be done differently, and building up to what Tino just said, if we're going to work together, firstly, there are many places of departure. We can look at common grounds. Businesses want to make profits. I don't think we can find common ground with the level of greed that businesses sometimes exhibit, but there are areas where there is common ground with people on the ground, with nature, and seeing how do we make those two work. So let's say your ESG strategies, which a lot of businesses are now adopting. You've now got standards that are coming in place in 2024. Instead of just looking at what does that mean for my bottom line, the S of ESG we keep ignoring. The S, bringing the S together, and the E to not only speak to nature but also to speak to local communities, and again what Tino said of when we work together, when you build your ESG strategies or in a way that then brings in the communities that you work for. But even in bringing them in, you're not just bringing them in as recipients or recipients of your donations. You're bringing them in as people who've got expertise on nature, people who've got expertise on the land where you do business, people who've got expertise on the communities where you get your labor from, people who've got expertise on expertise on how to protect the very land that you get your profits and all of that drives those businesses. Don't just engage them as this is a fun thing. The pictures, when you come as this culture, please come dressed in all of yours so we can take pictures. The businesses are robbing themselves off of so much knowledge that could allow them to not only do better, but do less harm. When we talk about where businesses should start, sometimes businesses will say that they're a bit overwhelmed, they don't know where to start. They can start internally. Before we even look at how do we do better externally, let's go back to the principle of doing no harm to communities, doing no harm to nature. Look at your business practices. Where's the harm? How do you eliminate the harm? And then after that, looking at that to improve business practices. And then on the youth perspective, I think here when we spoke the other day, what I spoke about was when a lot of young people now are going into social entrepreneurship, respecting that, yes, they want to go into business, but we also are aware that there's a climate crisis. We've got the most to lose as young people. The future that our futures depend on, you know that, yes, you can go into business, but what's going to happen to your business when your ships are now washed away because there's an extreme weather event? A friend who runs an organization that uses some materials had to stop production because due to a natural weather event, they couldn't get that. When we keep harming nature, we make it very difficult and increase the risk to businesses of just doing business. And as young people are finding ways around that. So in Botswana, young people will say, okay, this is a new way of doing this. I'm sure it's the same in other countries where young people are doing something different. But if we want to tap into that ingenuity, they need to be trusted. We need to trust that the different things that they're putting at the table, the different ways that they're engaging with people, engaging with nature, they need to be backed. And as a result, they will start to see the results. If someone is saying we need $100 to make this project where we are working with both communities and protecting nature and sustaining livelihoods to work, and we need $100, and then they're told, young people, because it's new, they're told, we've never seen that before, we'll give you $5. You're giving them 5% of their budget. Of course, they'll probably fail. So opening up their minds, appreciating what the real risks are and what the perceived risks are, understanding that, and Trusting people. We know that in business you're told not to trust, but on our side where we do work in communities, we say trust people, and then you'll start to see things go well and partnerships have some sort of success.
Really, really helpful. Thank you for that, Pato. And I think that points to a lot of aspects of how business can really reimagine some of the ways in which it partners and operates, and new sort of power dynamics around that, but also flexibility, being open-minded to new ways of doing things and coming at it from an equal perspective as well. I'd love to build, Patty, a little bit on what you shared from Sierra Gorda, because obviously you've gone through almost 4 decades of experience there, which has, you've gone through 4 decades of experience there, and it's been an incredible journey from what we've seen and heard so far. Can you share now, from where you are now, and the partnerships that you've built directly with business in ways that are benefiting local community and nature on the ground? What is your learning from that, and your advice for businesses on how, for you, why your partnerships today with business are working well? What aspects of those are so effective from what you're seeing on the ground that you would advise others to look at?
Definitely the value of this subnational public policy is that it is a tax that they have to pay. That's why they are getting in touch for the first time with the forest of the state. Now, one of our challenges is to make them adopt the idea of pride, because they are regenerating the forest of the state. They are recuperating natural capital. Then this year we are really working to make them have that visibility and to grow among the corporate sector, this sense of pride and the value of Querétaro seal. But that's how they have approached to us. Before that, the commitment from the businesses, it has been not consistent, not with a sense of sharing a territory to understand more the other Mexico, the rural Mexico, the communities, very rustic communities in the mountains, because we are real and we are living within the natural capital of the state. Without the natural capital, Querétaro would be over, like any other place in the world. You just cannot erase Mother Nature. No, we really live within her. Yeah. So we from Sierra Gorda, we work with a lot of emergency we are already facing. Climate change is not 10 years old now. No, it's now. With such a drought, my friends, we have so little water, so many watershed has been logged, and the water streams are getting drier and drier, and we are losing water. Then climate change is right there. We are losing forests because of that. We have so many communities that now our priorities have changed. I have stopped all the things that could be a little dream, and we are just now catching water, cleaning water, recycling, protecting the forest the best way we may, giving economic value for the landowners. Yeah, wow. On our protocol, my friends, 95% of the money goes to the community. Yeah, just the 5% of this local protocol it is a protocol that it has been developed to be executed by conservation NGOs, Tino, not by external carbon developers. So one of the conditions is that you have to be a charity. Then as a local operator, you may not spend more than 5%. And the rest of the money is for my friends, the forest owners. And they feel so good and they are so much proud. Oh, the Botox ran away. Then I'm just recuperating, my friends. But I'm that way from here and here. Oh. So we have developed a friendly protocol that may be adapted. You have to provoke local financing with transparency. Yeah, with a methodology has been approved by United Nations Environment and all the requirements. But it is for a public policy. It's not for a market. It's for a carbon reduction with the transparency and visibility that may give you trust for your donors. And now that we have it, it seems that there is a new financing approaching us. No, incredible. Of big capitals that are interested and to give speed to this climate change attention. We need to take care of natural value as the sacred, because it is the sacred thing that we may keep.
Thank you.
So to have a protocol, it gives us a new perspective. And I'm gonna quiet now because I need a little.
Thank you, Patty. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I think building on that, if we turn to you, Stephen, because I know that what you shared as well is that Canada has a ways to go, as many countries do, of course, to reach the 30% target, and that quite rightly you're highlighting the importance of investing in Indigenous-led projects and communities in order to reach that goal. But you've also mentioned that currently many of those projects are not qualifying within global marketplaces, for example, carbon marketplaces. And so you're not necessarily receiving the investment levels that you need to see. So with that in mind, would you like to share a bit, Stephen, about how you think business can help advocate and be supportive of increasing investment to Indigenous-led projects within Canada that you yourself are keen to champion and highlight?
Stephen,
so can you just...
Okay, thank you for
there
that.
We go.
At every webinar, we're going to have to say, somebody's going to have to say we are on mute. Going back to the days of COVID and a lot of Zoom time. You know, the Indigenous peoples globally have suffered and still suffering colonialism. And you could directly tie colonialism to climate change. The way Indigenous peoples have been treated, their lands and territories have been treated the same way, and which is a causation effect to date. Indigenous peoples have proven scientific proof that Indigenous people are the best at caretaking nature. So they have the capacity that should be recognized by the business community. Where capacity is required is from the Western and business community side. What can they do to prepare themselves in building their relationship with Indigenous peoples globally? And you know, most governments in the world operate in cycles of 4 years, 5 years, and there's always an election mode. So from a public government perspective, from a democratic government perspective, it's really hard to think long-term in a continuous way. That's where businesses can really take a leadership role globally and domestically, in wherever country they're in. They could take the long-term view and build long-term relationships with those that have proven to be the best at caretaking nature, indigenous peoples. We also know through scientific data that we have only 35% of biodiversity left globally. 80% of that is on indigenous peoples' lands. We are in climate change mode right now, and nature is the only proven has the only proven capacity to mitigate the impacts of climate change, and we need to help nature today. We need to invest in those that have the best relationship with nature. Those are indigenous peoples globally. In Canada, Canada is a first world country. Indigenous peoples were colonized, and they still live under colonial rules and policies and legislation to a large extent. Even though we do have constitutional rights recognized within our constitution, and using that, we build a very effective relationship with crown governments. But policies and legislations still impact that capacity to do so. The issue around carbon projects, for example. There's two main rules that's required. There's a requirement for additionality. If it wasn't protected or conserved, would have been destroyed. Well, that rule doesn't make any sense when we're in the midst of climate change. The greatest threat to nature today is climate change itself. And the other rule is jurisdiction. The marketplace wants certainty. If they get into a long-term relationship with an entity that's advancing nature-based solutions project with carbon offsets, they want to make sure that somebody else can't come in and change the terms of those relationships. So jurisdictional certainty, additionality doesn't make sense, because climate change should be recognized as the greatest threat to nature. So those two types of policies that really impact colonialized communities who have territories, but they don't have jurisdictional authority under the which lies with the state governments. So how do we address those right now to give certainty to the business community that could invest and build a long-term relationship with indigenous peoples globally? And these are 30, 40, 50 years, 70 years relationship we're talking about. We're developing a nature-based solutions project. So that's the long-term opportunity we have to give nature a chance to do its thing, for us to do our thing. Climate change is not an environmental issue. The environment is paying for it. It's a social issue. And I think that's where there's an opportunity to really learn from indigenous peoples. The dominant societies of the world can really learn from indigenous peoples and the values and belief systems and practices they have in their relationship with nature. That's what it's going to take. Because we are 8 billion people now. The population is going to rise and rise. Even if we start decarbonizing now, the pressure on Mother Earth is still going to increase. So we need to look at this the relationship we have with existing nature that's given us a chance in the long term. And that's where businesses and indigenous peoples can really build relationship. Here in Canada, Nature for Justice, in partnership with Ducks Unlimited Canada and Nature Focused Developments, we're working on supporting indigenous-led and owned nature-based solutions projects, where we're providing them with the technical capacity to help them build their projects that they own at the end of the day. And they have the capacity to use the revenues in the way that's of their priorities and their values, so that we could give them the chance to continue maintaining the relationship using their local place-based knowledge systems of their ecosystems. And like I indicated, we have, side in Andina, we've got 26,338 square kilometers. We don't have the financial capacity to manage that against climate change. But imagine if that 26,000 square kilometers was used to put a value on how much carbon it sequesters, how much biodiversity that's there, what type of nature services, and put a financial value on that, and put that on the global marketplace, where the money is going to the communities, or in part, or shared revenues with the public governments of that territory. We could use that revenues to manage Side and Andina in the face of climate change. For an example, part of the colonial history is that they really focus on taking indigenous people's responsibilities away from them in all facets, including the application of ways of knowing and doing. So, traditional burning, for an example, can be reintroduced in this 30% of the world that's protected or projected to be protected, so that it provides the fires needed and eliminate the fuel, working with the public government and identifying high concentration of biodiverse areas, carbon sinks, and areas that sequester carbon, and map them out so that you could manage those areas on a regular basis, and then the public governments can, governments of the world or those responsible can fight those fires or other climate change induced impacts on those spaces. That's important. It's important that we connect the Paris Accord with the Montreal Command Accord, that the 30% that's targeted needs to be connected to the global marketplace, because we need to incentivize the right type of protected areas and put it on the marketplace so that we can manage those areas to give us a fighting chance. And
thank you, Stephen.
That's what we're doing with our 30 by 30 program in Canada. And hopefully we could take it to the rest of the world as well.
Thank you so much, Stephen. I think that's actually a perfect segue to, if we can pull up a slide where we've highlighted, actually for all of the speakers, we wanted to make sure to showcase something in which those who are joining can follow up with. So there's a YouTube film premiere happening today on from Grupo Ecológico Sierra Gorda. So it's a brilliant 6-minute film which gives you a really insightful view on biodiversity and forest conservation in the incredible Sierra Gorda biosphere. And Millie is now adding into the chat box the URL links for all of these 4. So it's super easy for everyone to copy and follow up with. Listen to Sustain 267 and Pato's podcast series, which is all about amplifying African voices on the climate crisis and beyond. Contact Stephen to hear more and engage on Nature for Justice's goal to create a network of Indigenous-led carbon projects, where obviously Indigenous rights and responsibilities are centered. And then from Acción and Andina, we have a short, punchy 90-second visual video teaser to bring to life more of the work that Tino mentioned, which is across the whole of the Andes. In addition, you'll notice that Millie has shared in the chat box the next slide, which is links to useful guidance notes and resources on this really important topic. So lots there that everyone can follow up with. And if we could also now, Millie, take the slide down and bring all of our speakers, and if we can have Julie join as well from the Salesforce side to help close out. It's been a brilliant session. I know we've overrun by a few minutes, everyone. We did get to some of the Q&As, and apologies we couldn't get to all, but it really wanted to give the focus and emphasis on all the speakers and their time to share their key messages. And so big thanks from my side and from the Wonderoom side. Julie, over to you for any closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Mairead. I'm excited to be with you in the studio today. Thank you to our panelists. Wanted to express my deep gratitude to you for all of the wisdom and your inspiring efforts. I think you articulated today that it's really not about focusing on nature. It's about the people and the connections that sustain life and make it worthwhile. And your work over the decades that you've been doing it has really demonstrated that. It's clear that local communities and Indigenous peoples are experts, and businesses need to be patient, open-minded, focus on doing no harm, be good listeners, students, and also advocates and responsible investors. So thank you for the messages that you shared. This is the final episode of our series. It's coming to a close. I want to thank you all that tuned in along the way. Thank you to Mairead as well for being a partner on this series. The intention was really to give business practitioners space to learn. Nature is complex, but as our panelists highlighted today, we have the solutions and the knowledge. We just need to weave those pieces together. So thank you. I hope you learned something along the way, and really excited to continue working with you all and leaning into this community that we've built.
Thank you so much, Julie. Very eloquently shared. I've noticed Tino has his hand up. Tino, did you want to say something?
Yeah, thank you so much for this time. I want to add something that is very important. Please, to everybody who's in this panel and also who's seeing us, I highly recommend it. Never, ever give a free check to the local communities. Never. Please, you're going to start a corruption. I saw this on the last more than 35 years that I've been traveling around the world. Create with transparency, or just bring a proven institution who can help to manage all these things. Because in other case, forget it. This idea of giving a free check happens around the world, but what's happening? Especially the illegal companies are using that way because they convince to the local leaders to sign some documents, and they are losing territory, they are losing everything, and at the end, we are creating social, environmental impacts. And also, this is going to create for the companies delays, problems on the production, because the communities are going to be upset and started to produce social problems. But that happens because they use that methodology on giving a free check. Never, ever use it that way, please. Because the other way is the local communities and native communities and everybody in this panel are going to agree with me. They don't like the difficult language that they speak. Never use the technical way or never use the complicated way, because local communities at the end are going to follow up. But for me, I'm so angry when I saw groups arriving from Europe, from everywhere with a lot of money. For what? To teach and help to the local communities in governance. Yeah. Sorry if I use this word, fuck up. That is not impossible. Why? Because we are talking with local and native communities who has thousands of years of governance. How you are going to come from the big city to teach them how to be organized with governance? This is ridiculous. Really ridiculous. Respect them, please. That is the only thing that I want to add.
Thank you, Tino. I think that's a really important note to go out on. Thank you again to all of our speakers. We are now actually almost 10 minutes over time for the whole webinar. So Patty, if you have a very quick final addition, but we are going to have to close the webinar. If you have a final message.
You're on mute, Patty.
If you can unmute.
Yep. ¿Quién dijo que todo está perdido? Yo vengo a entregar mi corazón. A wave of love for the planet.
Oh, thank you so much, Patty. That is a beautiful way to close out our webinar and our series, in fact. So thank you so much. Thank you, all of you, for joining today. We really appreciate it. And thank you to also Pato, who has dropped out due to the storms and internet connection in Botswana. And we thank all of you for joining on the webinar today and for the series. Thank you for your engagement. Thank you to everyone who registered and joined today and who's watching the replays. We appreciate it. And with that, we'll close out the episode. Thank you so much.
Adiós, muchachos.